I still remember the exact moment. The cool glass of the boardroom table pressed against my fingertips as I placed the final copy of the amended contract. The room, usually loud with pronouncements of power, was eerily quiet. Across from me, Victor Thorne, CEO of Western Enterprises, the man who had always dismissed me, sat slumped. His face was pale, drawn, a stark contrast to his usual arrogance. His gaze, once so dismissive, was now fixed on me, wide with disbelief and dawning horror. A faint hum of the air conditioning amplified the tension. He had just heard the board's verdict, a verdict that sealed his fate and rewrote the future of our multi-billion-dollar company. His career, built on hubris and negligence, was crumbling before his eyes. He opened his mouth, but only a choked gasp escaped. It was a silence louder than any shouting, a silence that sang of justice finally served. And I, Lila Harper, the quiet administrator he had so casually ignored, was the orchestrator of this profound, undeniable silence. For years, I had navigated Western Enterprises as a diligent shadow. My role, executive administrator, hid my deep understanding of the company's inner workings. Then came a monumental acquisition. I uncovered a critical flaw, a ticking time bomb. My attempts to warn leadership, especially Victor Thorne, were met with patronizing dismissal. They saw a secretary, not a sentinel. This blatant disregard ignited a quiet resolve. I knew if the company was to be saved from its own arrogance, I would have to do it, not by direct confrontation, but by precisely turning their own rules against them. My decade at Western Enterprises was a study in quiet dedication. I was the steady hand behind the scenes, ensuring the executive floor ran smoothly. I arrived early, stayed late, absorbing every detail, every whisper of corporate life. My meticulously organized desk reflected my precise, methodical mind, capable of cataloging vast information. I had joined after a personal upheaval derailed my initial career path in law, a background no one at Western Enterprises bothered to uncover. Victor Thorne, our CEO, was ambition personified, draped in self-importance. Brilliant, yes, but shadowed by impenetrable arrogance. He saw the company as his chessboard, employees as pawns. He surrounded himself with equally sharp, ruthless individuals who mirrored his dismissive attitude towards anyone not C-suite. My interactions with him were brief, functional. Lila, paperwork. Lila, schedule this, delivered with mild exasperation. He never asked my opinion, never sought my input, never considered my insights beyond calendar management. Western Enterprises culture reflected Victor: high stakes, high pressure, status conferring infallible wisdom. Ideas from lower ranks were stifled or co-opted. We, the administrative staff, were the unseen machinery, sharing camaraderie born of shared invisibility. We kept secrets, cleaned messes, and silently watched dramas unfold. For years, I accepted this. My modest salary provided stability. I told myself contribution didn't always need recognition. But the part of me that once dreamed of courtrooms felt a dull ache. Small red flags chipped away at my resignation. Once, I quietly corrected a legal precedent in a memo for Victor. He later cited it confidently, earning praise, while the junior lawyer got credit for due diligence. Another time, I found a discrepancy saving thousands. Victor merely grunted, attributing it to tightening the budget. These incidents built quiet resentment, an awareness that my silence wasn't just my choice, but their convenient assumption. They assumed I had nothing valuable to say because I said it so quietly. They assumed my capabilities were limited to my job description. They assumed wrong. Whispers about the Evergreen Initiative acquisition roared through Western Enterprises. The largest deal in company history, Axiom Technologies, a pioneering AI logistics firm, valued at $150 million. Anticipation vibrated. Bonuses were practically counted, promotions certain. Victor Thorne, the deal's architect, already basked in glory. My role, as always, was managing immense document flow. Hundreds of pages of contracts, filings, statements, and specs passed through my hands daily. I meticulously organized, cross-referenced, and ensured signatures. It was during one of these late-night sessions, days before final signing, that I found it. A chill snaked down my spine. It was in a dense annex, Clause 187, subsection C, a seemingly innocuous passage. It spoke of intellectual property rights and transfer. My eyes, trained by years of observation and a forgotten legal past, fixated on a subtle ambiguity regarding reversion of certain software licenses. It allowed a third-party claim under obscure, almost ludicrous conditions. The fee, a mere $2,000. To Victor's high-priced legal team, it would be dismissed as an archaic, irrelevant boilerplate relic. But I saw the danger. A gaping hole, a perfectly legal vulnerability that, if exploited, could render Axiom Technologies' core product useless. A ticking bomb, capable of derailing the entire $150 million acquisition. The next morning, armed with highlighted notes, I approached Victor's office. His executive assistant, Oliver Hale, merely glanced up. Mr. Thorne is in a critical strategy meeting for Evergreen Initiative, he stated, implying I was an interruption. It's about Evergreen Initiative, Oliver. It's urgent. A legal vulnerability I discovered, I insisted. Oliver sighed dramatically, then reluctantly buzzed Victor. After a brief, hushed conversation, he looked at me. Mr. Thorne said his legal team has everything handled. He appreciates your diligence, but suggests you focus on your duties. The polite dismissal fueled a deeper fire. Later, I intercepted Victor in the hallway, surrounded by his inner circle. Mr. Thorne, forgive me, but I truly believe there's a critical flaw in Clause 187, subsection C, regarding core software licenses in the Axiom Technologies acquisition. It's a genuine loophole that could cost us billions if not addressed before closing. I held out my notes, my hand trembling slightly. Victor paused, frowned. He glanced at my notes, then at me, annoyance flickering. Lila, are you suggesting you know more about international corporate law than my entire legal department? He chuckled condescendingly. You're an administrator, Lila. A very good one, mind you. But leave the high-level legal analysis to the professionals, all right? Just make sure the catering is ordered for the signing ceremony. He patted my shoulder, a patronizing gesture. His inner circle exchanged amused glances. The message was unmistakable. Stay in your lane. You're insignificant. My face burned. The humiliation twisted in my gut. It wasn't just dismissal, it was invalidation. In that moment, something snapped. The quiet, compliant Lila began to fade, replaced by cold, calculating resolve. The dismissal, the patronizing pat, the casual contempt, it all fueled a potent fire. I walked back to my desk, my mind a whirlwind of hurt and indignation. But amidst the emotional storm, a chillingly precise plan formed. They saw me as invisible, a mere cog. But they had carelessly handed me the instrument of their potential downfall. I would not warn them again. This time, I would act. That evening, I remained in the office long after everyone left. I dissected the Axiom Technologies acquisition contract, meticulously rereading Clause 187, subsection C. It was a reversion of license clause, absurdly specific, yet legally binding. If a third party, for a nominal $2,000, formally challenged certain core software licenses before the merger finalized, those licenses could be temporarily suspended or revert, effectively freezing Axiom's primary value. My hands trembled. This wasn't about personal gain, but saving the company Victor carelessly jeopardized and exposing his arrogance. I couldn't act as Lila Harper, administrator. I needed a proxy. Over the next few days, under the guise of personal legal research, I contacted Dr. Sarah Benson, an old college friend in corporate compliance. I presented a hypothetical scenario, omitting details. Sarah, intrigued by the absurdity, confirmed its validity. It's a bizarre relic, Lila, but legally binding. Her words solidified my resolve. My evenings became a blur of legal research and online company registrations. Using guarded savings, I set up a small, legitimate, anonymous consulting firm, Protectus Consulting. Incorporated through shell entities to obscure my direct involvement, Protectus Consulting would be the third party invoking the dormant clause. I prepared the claim paperwork, precise in every detail, every form, every legal precedent. I ensured Protectus Consulting had the legal standing to claim potential interest. This was an act of precision, a meticulously constructed legal maneuver. As Victor celebrated, I built the mechanism for his rude awakening. The official merger announcement arrived with a flourish. Champagne flowed at Western Enterprises. Victor Thorne, resplendent, accepted congratulations. I watched from the periphery, a ghost in the celebrations. The ink on the final contract was barely dry. The very next morning, as Western Enterprises' stock price surged, Protectus Consulting moved. A formal, impeccably drafted legal notice was delivered to Western Enterprises' legal department. It cited Clause 187, subsection C, detailing the loophole and formally invoking the right to challenge. It stated Protectus Consulting's intention to temporarily suspend key operational licenses of Axiom Technologies due to potential future intellectual property liabilities. The nominal $2,000 was paid and recorded. Chaos erupted in the legal department. Victor Thorne's initial outrage echoed through the executive floor. Who are these people? Protectus Consulting? Find them. Crush this frivolous claim, he roared, ordering Mr. Davidson, his lead legal counsel. Davidson initially dismissed it as a nuisance filing. But as his team read the specifics, cold dread set in. The loophole was real. It was precisely as described, a binding clause, and Protectus Consulting had fulfilled all conditions. Axiom Technologies' core software licenses were in jeopardy. The $150 million acquisition was on life support. Panic rippled through the upper echelons. The stock price wavered, then dipped. Urgent, hushed meetings replaced celebratory lunches. Victor Thorne's face became tight and pale. He called frantic legal sessions, demanding answers, threatening consequences. How could you miss this? This is catastrophic, he screamed. I observed it all from my desk, a silent, unblinking witness. I saw the hurried phone calls, stressed expressions, whispered conversations about the license freeze and the unexpected challenge. No one suspected the quiet woman processing invoices was the source of their nightmare. Victor occasionally caught my eye, a flicker of paranoia. The corporate machine, once confident, now focused on discrediting the threat. Victor, realizing the gravity, had to contain damage before the board or media learned of his oversight. His first move was predictable: discredit the messenger. 2 days after Protectus Consulting's claim, I received an email from HR. Subject: formal inquiry into conduct. Immediate response required. My pulse quickened with anticipation. I knew this tactic: smear the opponent, isolate them. The email accused me of unauthorized interference and potential breach of confidentiality. I smiled. They underestimated me. I had anticipated this. 2 days prior, I discreetly hired Ms. Emily Wright, a sharp, methodical attorney. I immediately forwarded the HR email to her. The next morning, I arrived early. My computer screen blinked, access restricted. I took a steady breath. This was it. At 8:13 a.m., I was summoned to HR. Ms. Susan Parker, head of HR, and Mr. James Wong, corporate counsel, waited. We've temporarily suspended your system access, Ms. Parker began, pending investigation into recent concerns. I nodded calmly. Concerns relating to a lawful, documented license claim I filed personally, outside of company resources, within my legal rights as a private citizen. A flicker of discomfort crossed Ms. Parker's face. Mr. Wong leaned forward. Miss Harper, are you admitting involvement with this Protectus Consulting entity? I held his gaze evenly. I am admitting I filed a legal claim, using established processes regarding a publicly accessible clause. My actions were entirely lawful. I handed Ms. Parker a letter from Ms. Wright, stating any retaliatory action, restricting access, baseless blame, impeding legal rights, would be met with swift, public legal response. Mr. Wong's lips thinned. Is that a threat, Miss Harper? No, I replied, unwavering. It's a fact. They exchanged a look. Miss Parker nodded stiffly. We'll review this. I left the office with no system access, but with more valuable assets, an irrefutable paper trail, and the implicit message I was not a pawn. By noon, office whispers became frantic concern. I caught fragments. HR's on her now. Finished. Crazy move. The deal is frozen. What happened? I walked through the chaos, neutral, head high. Victor was trying to push me out before the board or shareholders learned the truth. If I walked away, it would confirm their accusations. But I wasn't walking away. At 2 p.m., I met Ms. Wright at a cafe. She listened, then slid a folder across the table. We're filing a preemptive injunction, she stated calmly. If they move against you again, they'll have to explain everything in court. Public record. I glanced at the documents. Victor won't risk that, I said. My attorney smiled. That's the point. The next day, office atmosphere shifted dramatically. Tension didn't dissolve, it thickened, suffocating. But it wasn't aimed at me. It was squarely at Victor Thorne. Word leaked from the frantic internal legal team. Questions arose. How did an administrator file a binding claim? Why hadn't legal caught it? Why was HR scrambling? The CFO avoided eye contact. 2 VPs whispered furiously. Then, late that afternoon, my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. It was the chairman of the board, Mr. Robert Crawford. Lila, this is Robert Crawford. I believe we need to have a conversation. The final piece of my quiet chess game was falling into place. I sat across from Robert Crawford in a glass-walled conference room on the top floor. Unlike Victor, Robert didn't posture. He listened. For 20 minutes, I laid it all out. My voice was calm, factual, professional, devoid of personal emotion. I described discovering the loophole, my attempt to warn Victor, his dismissive response, his patronizing words. I detailed my legal research, establishing Protectus Consulting, the precise, lawful filing of the claim, and Victor's attempts to discredit me through HR and restrict my access. I presented corresponding documents, time-stamped emails, contract copies, the Protectus Consulting filing, and my attorney's letter detailing his punitive actions. When I finished, Robert sat back, hands steepled, gaze unreadable. You've put us in a very difficult position, Miss Harper, he said quietly. I met his eyes steadily. No, sir. Victor Thorne did that. I followed the law. The company's leadership ignored it. He exhaled slowly, a faint nod. You're not wrong, he conceded. A long silence stretched between us. You've given us a great deal to consider, he concluded. I would appreciate it if you didn't speak to the press. I offered a small smile. I'm not looking for headlines, Mr. Crawford. I'm looking for accountability. He nodded, his eyes holding new, reluctant respect. Understood. As I stood, he added, we'll be in touch. I left feeling Western Enterprises' brittle fragility. Victor thought this was a game of intimidation. He forgot, you cannot intimidate someone with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. By Monday morning, the office was changed. No sudden announcements, no firings, but the tension was palpable. The corporate ecosystem had shifted. Victor Thorne wasn't holding court. His glass office door was closed, blinds drawn, a clear sign of his isolation. Robert Crawford, the chairman, was on site, a constant, ominous presence. All morning, executives were called upstairs for private discussions. HR kept heads down. Legal moved in and out of the boardroom like silent messengers, faces etched with stress. I watched from my desk, quiet, focused on mundane tasks. By noon, rumors swelled, emergency board review. Compliance breach. Thorne's future in question. I didn't feed them. I didn't need to, I was at its epicenter. At 2:15 p.m., the call came. Boardroom. Now. It was Robert Crawford's assistant. I stood, smoothed my blazer, and walked the long corridor. My reflection in the glass walls was calm, composed. Inside, every board member was seated. Victor sat isolated at the far end, jaw clenched, arms crossed, arrogance replaced by simmering resentment. Robert gestured me to the chair directly across from him, conspicuously one seat apart from Victor. I nodded, sat. Silence. Robert spoke. We've reviewed Ms. Harper's documents and statements from legal, HR, and compliance. We've also consulted outside counsel. He looked around. Grim nods. This acquisition has been jeopardized by critical oversight. That is undeniable. The question is how we handle the business implications and internal leadership issues. A murmur. Robert turned to me. Ms. Harper, you filed a legal claim as a private individual, using your own resources. Correct? Yes, sir. Were company resources used? No, sir. Did you act on proprietary information not in public records? I shook my head, voice clear and firm. The clause was part of the original acquisition agreement, a public document. Robert nodded. Thank you. He turned to Victor, gaze cold. And you, Mr. Thorne, were made aware of this issue prior to the claim. Victor's jaw tightened. Robert cut him off. Yes or no, Mr. Thorne? Victor's nostrils flared, face a mask of fury. Yes, he ground out. Did you investigate? Victor hesitated, then muttered, I dismissed it. Silence. Robert leaned back, hands folded, finality in his posture. Noted. The next hour was a controlled dismantling. Each board member methodically reviewed Victor's mishandling, his refusal to escalate concerns, dismissal of my warnings, arrogant infallibility, attempts to retaliate through HR by suspending my access and launching a baseless inquiry, and my formal complaint detailing his punitive actions. Every step Victor took to discredit me was now irrefutable evidence against him. He tried to defend himself with weak excuses, half-truths, shifting blame, even suggesting I acted out of spite. The board wasn't buying it. I didn't need to say much. The facts, undeniable, spoke louder than any defense. His face, once imperious, now sagged with his downfall's weight. Finally, Robert Crawford delivered the verdict, voice grave, resolute. Effective immediately, Victor Thorne is placed on administrative leave pending further review. The board will appoint interim leadership. Victor opened his mouth, a raw sound escaping, but Robert's raised hand silenced him. You may collect your personal belongings under supervision, Mr. Thorne. Your access is revoked as of now. Victor's face turned deep crimson. He shot me a look, not of anger, but utter, disbelieving shock. I met his eyes with steady, unblinking calm. For once, Victor Thorne had no words. He simply stood, a broken man, his empire crumbling, defeated by the very person he considered invisible. When the board adjourned, Robert Crawford pulled me aside. You handled yourself with remarkable professionalism and restraint, Miss Harper, he said quietly, genuine respect in his voice. I respect that deeply. Thank you, sir, I replied, the words feeling profound. He gave a small nod. We'll need your help navigating the fallout. Axiom's lawyers are already asking questions. I'll be ready, I affirmed. This wasn't about revenge. This was about doing what Victor never understood, protecting the company by doing the right thing, respecting details, valuing competence over status. The official announcement came 2 days later. Victor Thorne stepped down as CEO, citing personal reasons. No press release, just a quiet internal memo. No one believed it. The office buzzed. The board pushed him out. Axiom Technologies nearly collapsed. And somehow Lila Harper, the quiet administrator, was at the center. I stayed silent. I wasn't interested in gossip. The deal mattered. With Victor gone, the Axiom Technologies acquisition moved forward. This time, with full transparency. Robert Crawford, appointed interim CEO, immediately insisted on a revised negotiation team focused on meticulous detail. To my surprise, he asked me to be part of it, not as an assistant, but as a recognized advisor. "You've proven you understand what's at stake," Lila, Robert said. "And you know how to read between the lines." I accepted, with conditions. I wanted clear authority on compliance and contractual oversight, autonomy to speak up without bureaucracy. Robert agreed without hesitation. "Consider it done," he said. Over the next 2 weeks, I worked side by side with the legal team, poring over every inch of paperwork. Axiom's attorneys became cooperative. When we finally closed, the acquisition was airtight. No loopholes. No oversights. No ego-driven mistakes. The deal made industry headlines, not just for its size, but for the quiet shift in its handling. For once, a corporate giant closed a deal with integrity. One evening, after the final documents were signed, I found myself alone in the conference room. 10 years of being underestimated, dismissed, overlooked. I started this job thinking hard work alone earned respect. I learned it doesn't. Sometimes you take respect. Claim it. Stand firm when others expect you to fold. Know your worth. Robert joined me, holding 2 coffees. "You know," he said, "the board's been talking." I raised an eyebrow. Ominous. He smiled. "We want you to stay. Creating a new role, Director of Corporate Integrity and Contractual Oversight. Reports directly to the Executive Board." I blinked. "That's a real position." He chuckled. "It is now." I exhaled. "Why me?" His smile faded, sincere. "Because you didn't just protect this company from financial disaster, Lila. You protected it from itself. And you did it without seeking credit, revenge, or personal gain. You simply did what was right." I studied him, seeing rare integrity. "Thank you," I said quietly. He nodded. "You earned it." The next morning, I moved into my new office. A modest space, no grand title on the door. I was fine with that. This wasn't about a nameplate. It was about having a voice, ensuring no one else here had to fight alone just to be heard. As for Victor Thorne, he took a consulting gig on the West Coast, smaller firm, fewer headlines. Maybe he'd learned. Or maybe not. That wasn't my concern. Some battles you fight for survival. Some for principle. And some you fight because walking away means accepting things as they are, when you know they should be better. I didn't set out to win a war. I just refused to lose quietly. And in the end, that made all the difference.